Last Sunday, a Jewish actress named Alex Bornstein won the Emmy for her role as Susie in the show The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. During her acceptance speech, Alex told the story of how her grandmother survived certain death during the Holocaust. In her own words, and I quote, "My grandmother was in line to be shot into a pit and turned towards a guard and said, 'What happens if I step out of line?' And he said, 'I don't have the heart to shoot you, but somebody will.' And she stepped out of line, and no one shot her. And for that I am here, and for that my children are here. So step out of line," she told the audience, "step out of line." My message to all of us in honor of the Jewish New Year is that this year we too should join the long list of our illustrious ancestors who have survived and thrived because they were willing to step out of line. In challenging the way of thinking of his entire generation, Abraham, the father of the Jewish people, stepped out of line. Indeed, the very first thing Abraham and his family were called was Hebrews, or Ivri, which means those from the other side. According to one interpretation, those from the other side was a reference to the fact that, ideologically speaking, the entire world stood on one side and Abraham was willing to stand on the other. The earliest definition of a Jew then, and one that would come to accurately describe Jewish people throughout history and until today, is that we are a people who are willing to stand alone if it means standing up for what we believe is right. But friends, Jews have not stepped out of the line simply for the sake of stepping out of the line. Judaism doesn't subscribe to anarchy or antinomianism. Indeed, in the truest sense, stepping out of the line sometimes calls for stepping into the line, which is exactly what Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel did on March 21st, 1965, when he linked arms literally with Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders taking part in their historic walk from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. On a personal note, during a family reunion this past summer, I was moved to learn the following story about my great-grandfather, the renowned scholar and chassid, Rabbi Mordechai Dov Berlakshin. In the 50s, while traveling on a bus in the South, a group of African Americans got on and were forced to go to the back of the bus. Now, he wasn't a young man, and rather than minding his own business or looking the other way, he stepped out of line. He got up from his seat and joined them at the back of the bus in solidarity. Friends, sometimes stepping out of line demands something even more difficult than stepping into line with those less fortunate than ourselves, and requires that we step across the line, or aisle, so to speak, and extend respect and civility to those we disagree with most. We live at a time of intense polarization and partisanship, both within and outside of the Jewish community, which I believe, if left unchecked, threatens to stretch the seams of society beyond the point of no return. We live at a time when political, social, and ideological divides have become so deeply and dogmatically entrenched and embedded in national and communal discourses around the world that they have sadly pitted citizen against citizen and brother against sister. To be a Jew is to be committed to stepping across lines of difference and disagreement, and to never lose sight of the common humanity or the divine image, as the Torah puts it, in which each and every human being was created. As a society, we need to learn the art of disagreeing agreeably and recognize the profound difference between an opponent and an enemy. So this year, let us be willing to step out of line, to step out of the self-limiting parameters we have created for ourselves, whether physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual, to step out of the negative perceptions we have bought into about others and the cynical narratives we tell ourselves about certain relationships in our lives that we have deemed beyond repair, and to step out of the lines created by society's appetites and expectations. In the words of Emily Henry Govray, "I was part of that strange race of people aptly described as spending their lives doing things they detest, to make money they don't need, to buy things they don't want, to impress people they dislike." We live at a time that is often so noisy, it's hard to hear ourselves think. We live in an era that is so cluttered with opinions that it's sometimes hard to formulate our own. We live in an era so marked and punctuated by exclamation marks that life's biggest questions often go ignored. We live under the tight-fisted rule of technology that is so invasive and pervasive and demanding of our attention that we hardly have time to converse with ourselves. And so to step out of line, for me personally, means to break away from it all one day a week called Shabbat, and a few minutes each day in prayer when I lay my tefillin and say the Shema. These out-of-step rituals allow me to create and to enter many islands of faith and focus, serenity and introspection, which in turn allow me to choose the important over the urgent. In conclusion, this year, may we step out of certain lines and into others, and across all of those lines that divide us unnecessarily, and may we each be inscribed for a year of excellent health, prosperity, and nachas from ourselves and our loved ones. Shana Tova Umetuka.